ballroom glittered with golden lights. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, spilling brightness over marble floors. 100 guests laughed and talked, their voices rising above the soft notes of a string quartet. Waiters in white shirts carried trays of champagne, weaving between tables covered in silk cloth. It was a night of wealth, of luxury, of power, and in the middle of it all sat Daniel Kingston, the young millionaire everyone admired. He was only 28, tall and handsome, with sharp blue eyes and a calm smile that made people lean closer. When he spoke, he had inherited a fortune after his father passed away and built it even higher with smart business moves. To many, Daniel was not just rich, he was untouchable, a man born for success. Tonight was special. Tonight he was celebrating his engagement to Sophia Lane, the woman people called the diamond of the city. Sophia was stunning, her long blonde hair shining under the chandelier, her gown hugging her tall figure like it had been made of light. She moved like a queen, every step smooth, every glance proud. Everyone said Daniel was lucky to have her, but not everyone's eyes carried joy that night. At the edge of the ballroom, half hidden in shadows, stood a young woman in a plain black uniform, a simple apron wrapped around her waist. Her name was Maya. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't rich. She wasn't dressed in jewels or silk. She was just one of the servers paid to pour wine, refill plates, and disappear into silence. And yet, as her tired eyes scanned the crowd, they kept stopping at one thing: the tall glass of red wine placed before Daniel Kingston. Her hands shook slightly as she carried a tray of empty glasses back to the kitchen. Something about that drink, something dark, something wrong, had frozen her heart. She bit her lip, trying to ignore it, but the feeling grew stronger with every passing second. She told herself, "Stay quiet, Maya. You're just a servant. This isn't your world." But deep inside, a storm was building. The party went on, laughter filling the air. Daniel leaned toward Sophia, who touched his arm with polished nails. Their guests raised glasses, toasting their happiness. A man in a black tuxedo stepped forward and placed another glass of wine before Daniel, dark red, shining in the golden light like liquid fire. Daniel reached for it, smiling, ready to join the toast. And that was when Maya's world stopped. Her tray almost slipped from her fingers. Her chest tightened. The same cold fear returned. The same warning she had felt years ago when she saw a poisoned drink served in another wealthy house, back when she worked as a maid. She had never forgotten the look on that man's face, the smile before he swallowed, the last drop of his life. Now, the same color, the same glass, stood in front of Daniel. Her legs moved before her mind could stop them. She crossed the floor quickly, quietly weaving through laughing guests. No one noticed her plain dress, her nervous steps. Everyone was too busy clinking glasses. Daniel lifted the drink closer to his lips. The ruby-red wine caught the chandelier light. The music swelled, the laughter rose, and in that moment of celebration, whisper broke the air. "Don't touch that drink." Daniel froze. The voice was soft, shaky, but it cut through the noise like a knife. He turned his head slowly. Behind him stood Maya, her eyes wide with fear, her hands clutching her apron. The entire table fell silent. For a moment no one spoke. Then the laughter returned, sharper this time, mocking. A businessman in a gray suit chuckled. "Did you hear? That the maid thinks she's a doctor now?" Another woman in pearl sneered. "Poor girl, maybe she wants attention." Such drama. Sophia's lips curled into a cold smile. She leaned back in her chair, looking at Maya with disdain. "How dare you interrupt? You should know your place." But Daniel didn't laugh. He didn't move, just held the glass inches. From his lips, staring at the trembling servant, Maya's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her voice cracked as she repeated, "Please, don't drink it." The ballroom had turned into a theater. All eyes were locked on the strange scene, the millionaire, the fiancé, and the poor servant. Sophia laughed louder, brushing her golden hair back. "Daniel, darling, don't tell me you're listening to her. She's just a girl who clears tables." But Daniel's eyes narrowed. Something in Maya's voice was different. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't jealousy. It was fear, a desperate fear. He lowered the glass slightly. "Why?" he asked quietly. The room leaned in. Maya hesitated, her lips trembling. How could she explain? If she spoke too much, they'd throw her out. If she stayed silent, he might drink. She whispered again, barely audible, "It's not safe." Sophia slammed her hand on the table. Enough of this nonsense. She stood, her gown glittering as she towered over Maya. "Leave this party." At once, Maya flinched, her head bowing. But her hands refused to move. Her feet stayed planted on the marble. She shook her head slowly, whispering once more, "Please, trust me." Daniel's heart beat faster. He didn't believe in superstition, but the way Maya looked at him, it wasn't the gaze of someone seeking attention. It was the gaze of someone who had seen death. Sophia's laughter sounded forced now. Her voice rose sharply. "Daniel, don't humor her. Drink it and end this embarrassment." But Daniel's hand, still holding the glass, felt heavier by the second. The guests murmured among themselves, "Why would she say that? Is she mad? Or is she telling the truth?" The tension twisted tighter, choking the golden air of the ballroom. Daniel studied Maya carefully. He saw the sweat on her forehead, the shaking of her fingers. This wasn't an act. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't pretending. He asked again, louder this time, "Why shouldn't I drink it?" Maya opened her mouth, but no sound came. Couldn't? The memory of that other poisoned glass burned in her mind. But fear of losing her job, band, maybe her life chained. Her voice, her silence was almost worse than her words. Sophia's eyes flashed. She stepped forward quickly, placing her hand over Daniel's, trying to guide the glass to his lips. "Ignore her. She's ruining everything." Daniel's pulse raced. For the first time that night, he noticed the stiffness in Sophia's smile, the sharpness in her movements. Why was she so desperate? Why did she want him to drink so badly? And why did this poor girl look like she had just saved him? The music had stopped. The laughter had faded. The ballroom was nothing but silence and stares. Daniel set the glass down. Slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's. Sophia's face tightened, the shine in her eyes hardening into something darker. And in that heavy silence, the question rose like smoke in every mind. Why would a poor servant risk everything to stop a millionaire? And more importantly, what did she know about his fiancée? The ballroom still echoed with silence. Daniel's hand rested on the untouched glass. His eyes fixed on Maya, the poor servant girl who had dared to whisper against wealth, against status, against his own fiancée. 100 eyes were watching. The chandelier lights sparkled above them, but the warmth of the party had died. Every guest leaned closer, waiting to see what Daniel would do. Sophia, standing tall in her shining gown, forced a laugh. "Daniel, really, don't tell me you were listening to this nonsense." Her voice was sweet on the surface, but it cracked underneath like thin ice. "She's a maid. Nothing more. This is embarrassing." But Daniel's thoughts swirled. He wasn't a man who jumped at shadows. He believed in facts and logic. Yet, something in Maya's trembling voice, in the way her dark eyes pleaded without pride, without selfishness, something had shaken him. He turned his chair slightly, blocking out the murmurs of the crowd. "Why?" he asked her again. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. "Why did you stop me?" The words hung in the air like thunder. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She looked down at her worn shoes, at her shaking hands. She had promised herself to stay invisible, to survive quietly in a world where people like her were seen but never heard. But now Daniel was asking her. In front of everyone, her lips parted. Because it's not safe," she whispered. Gasps rippled through the guests. Some laughed nervously. Others exchanged worried glances. Sophia's smile tightened into a blade. She leaned closer to Daniel, placing a hand on his arm. "You see, she can't even explain. Probably superstitions from her poor life. Darling, don't let her spoil our night." Daniel studied Maya. "Not safe how?" Maya hesitated. She couldn't. "Say the word poison." She accused openly. She might be dragged out, punished. Sophia was powerful, and Maya was just a servant. But her heart wouldn't let her stay silent. She took a shaky step closer, lowering her voice. "Please, just trust me. Don't drink it," the crowd whispered among themselves. Why is she so afraid? Do you think something is wrong? Or maybe she just wants attention? The tension tightened. Sophia straightened, her eyes flashing with anger. She clapped her hand sharply, summoning another waiter. "Remove her immediately," she ordered. "She's ruining our celebration." 2 guards in black suits stepped forward, ready to drag Maya away, but Daniel raised his hand. "Wait." The guards froze. The room fell silent again. Sophia blinked, startled.
Out.
He ignored her. His gaze was locked on Maya. "Tell me," he said quietly but firmly, "have you seen something like this before?" Maya's chest rose and fell. Memories burned in her mind. Another party years ago. Another rich man laughing as he lifted a glass that looked exactly like this one. She had been cleaning the floor when she saw it happen. She still remembered the scream, the collapse. The body carried away in silence so the world would never know. Her lips trembled. "Yes," she whispered. Daniel's heart thudded. The room spun slightly, though he hadn't touched the wine. He leaned back, watching Sophia carefully from the corner of his eye. She looked furious now, her perfect face cracking at the edges. Sophia tried to recover, letting out a laugh that was too sharp. "Daniel, please. She's clearly insane. Do you want our guests to think we believe in ghost stories? Down, drink, and enjoy the night?" But Daniel did not lift the glass. Instead, he stood slowly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. The room went breathless. He picked up the glass, holding it high so the crimson liquid caught the chandelier's light. "If it's nothing, then I lose nothing by refusing," he said calmly. Maya's eyes widened. Sophia's face stiffened. The guests leaned in closer, waiting. Then Daniel tilted the glass as if to drink. At the last second, he let it slip. The wine splashed across the marble floor like spilled blood. The stem of the crystal shattered, sharp pieces scattering. Gasps and screams filled the room. Sophia's face turned white, and Maya saw it. The tiniest flicker in Sophia's eyes. Not anger over a ruined celebration, not sadness for wasted wine, but something colder. A flash of panic. It was gone in a second, replaced by a forced laugh. But Maya knew. And Daniel saw it too. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. "Did you see her face? Why is she so nervous? Maybe the maid wasn't wrong." Sophia waved her hands, trying to control the room. "Accidents happen. Don't make drama out of spilled wine." She forced a smile, her voice sharper now. "Come, let's toast again." But no one raised their glass. The music hadn't started again. The air was heavy. Daniel turned back to Maya. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the room. "What is your name?" Maya blinked, startled. "Maya, sir." Daniel nodded. "Naya, thank you." Sophia's jaw clenched. Her fingers dug into the silk of her gown. Looked at Maya like she wanted her gone, erased, forgotten. But Maya stood frozen, torn between fear and relief. She had spoken. She had stopped him. For now, Sophia broke the silence with a laugh, too loud to be real. "Darling, you're embarrassing yourself. This girl is playing with your head. Let me handle her." She reached for Daniel's arm, but he pulled it back gently. For the first time, Sophia felt the ground beneath her begin to shift. Daniel's eyes had changed. They weren't warm with trust anymore. They were sharp, searching, cautious. And in that moment, Maya realized she had done more than save him from a drink. She had planted a seed of doubt in his heart, a seed that could grow and show him the truth about love, and about the woman standing beside him. And as the guests returned to their murmurs, one question echoed louder than the music that refused to play. Why did the poor girl whisper her warning? And what would Daniel uncover if he dared to follow it? The sound of shattered glass still lingered in the air, like an unfinished note from the orchestra that had gone silent. The marble floor glistened red where the wine had spilled, and the sharp edge of the broken stem sparkled under the chandeliers. But no one dared to step forward and clean it. No one dared to break the silence. Daniel Kingston, the young millionaire, stood tall beside the table, his hand still empty from letting the glass fall. His calm blue eyes scanned the room, then settled again on the girl who had whispered Deshmaya. Her hands were still trembling against her apron, but her gaze didn't waver now. She looked small in that vast ballroom, dressed in plain black, surrounded by men in silk and women in jewels. Yet in that moment, her presence was larger than any of them. Sophia Lane, Daniel's fiancée, broke the silence first. Her laugh was thin, cracking like porcelain. "Darling, what a clumsy accident," she said, her voice high and sweet, though her eyes betrayed the storm inside. She reached for his arm again. "Come, let's not ruin the night over broken glass." But Daniel stepped back slightly. Wasn't sure why. He only knew that something in her eagerness felt wrong. The guests shifted uncomfortably. A businessman coughed into his hand. A lady in pearls whispered to her husband. The tension was thick, pressing down on everyone. A waiter finally rushed forward with a cloth, kneeling to clean the mess. The sound of glass being gathered echoed like bones against the floor. Maya took a step back, as if she didn't belong in that circle anymore. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the shadows before Sophia's burning eyes cut her to pieces. But Daniel's voice stopped her. "Maya," he said clearly. She froze, heads turned. The sound of her name rolling off his lips shocked her more than any scream. A servant's name spoken by a millionaire. It was a collision of two worlds that weren't supposed to meet. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Why did you say the drink wasn't safe?" His question wasn't angry. It wasn't mocking. It was searching, careful. Sophia let out a harsh breath. "Danielle, are you seriously entertaining this? She's a maid. She knows nothing." Her smile snapped back on, fake and bright. "She's jealous, that's all. Perhaps she imagines if she saves you, you'll look at her." The crowd chuckled uneasily, some nodding, eager to dismiss the tension. But Daniel didn't laugh. He studied Maya's eyes again. There was no pride there, no ambition. Only fear. Maya lowered her gaze. I can't explain," she said softly. Her voice trembled, but her words carried weight. "But I know what I felt. Please forgive me if I'm wrong." But I couldn't stay silent. Her humility struck Daniel harder than if she had screamed. Sophia's jaw tightened. "Shh!" She leaned closer, her voice sharp against his ear. "Darling, you're humiliating us. Make her leave now." Daniel straightened. His blue eyes flickered between Sophia and Maya for the first time that night. He saw the faint cracks in the diamond woman he was supposed to marry. The music hadn't returned. The quartet sat frozen with their instruments, waiting for a signal that never came. The room was heavy with the unspoken. Daniel lifted his hand slowly. "No one leaves," he said firmly. The guards who had been ready to drag Maya away stepped back, surprised. Gasps echoed across the room. Sophia's face hardened, the mask slipping for a heartbeat. "Daniel?" she began, but he raised a hand to silence her. He wasn't shouting, yet his authority cut through the room like a blade. He turned back to Maya. "If you cannot explain here, then fine. But you have my thanks for caring enough to warn me." A murmur swept through the guests. Some nodded with respect, others frowned with confusion. Sophia's nails dug into the fabric of her gown. Man she thought she controlled was slipping from her hand, inch by inch, and all because of a servant's whisper. Maya's knees weakened. She wanted to collapse, but she held her ground. She bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. Daniel gave a small nod, then turned to the guests. "Forgive the interruption," he said with practiced calm. "Let's continue the evening." But the evening was not the same. The laughter returned, but it was forced, thin like paper. Glasses clinked, but the sound was hollow. The music started again, but even the violin strings trembled. Daniel sat back down, but his mind was no longer at the party. He kept glancing at Maya, who moved to the corner of the room, her head bowed as she carried empty glasses, and Sophia. Sophia smiled at the guests, her laugh ringing too loud, her hand gripping Daniel's arm with a little too much force. But her eyes were cold flames, burning holes through Maya. Later that night, as the party drifted toward its end, Daniel found himself standing alone near the balcony. The night air was cool, the city lights stretching far below. He exhaled slowly, the memory of Maya's whisper replaying in his mind. "Don't touch that drink." Why did it feel so heavy? Why did it echo louder than all the applause, louder than all the music? He rubbed his temples. For years he had believed Sophia was his perfect partner. Beautiful, confident, admired. But now he couldn't shake the image of her panicked face when the wine spilled behind him. Soft footsteps approached. He turned and saw Maya, carrying a tray of empty glasses. She froze, startled to find him there. Their eyes met. For a moment, two worlds collided against the poor servant girl and the millionaire. Daniel spoke gently. "Maya shook me tonight." Maya shook her head quickly. "No, sir. Maybe I was wrong. Please forget it." But Daniel's instincts whispered otherwise. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me the truth. What did you see?" Maya's lips trembled. She wanted to tell him everything. About the other house, the poisoned drink, the man who never woke again. But fear chained her tongue. All she could whisper was, "Be careful, sir. Some faces are not what they seem." Daniel's heart thudded. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if the love he thought he had with Sophia was nothing more than a mask. The night air was cool against Daniel's face as he stood by the balcony. Sophia's laughter echoing faintly from inside the ballroom. The city stretched endlessly below, its lights flickering like a million restless stars. But Daniel's mind wasn't on the view. It was replaying one sentence over and over. "Don't touch that drink." The whisper was simple, soft, almost lost in the noise of the party. And yet, it had shaken the foundation of his night. He closed his eyes, gripping the balcony rail. Why had it felt so real? Why had Maya's trembling voice touched him deeper than all of Sophia's confident smiles? Behind him, the glass doors slid open. The scent of perfume swept into the night, expensive and heavy. "Darling," Sophia's voice sang. "There you are. Everyone is asking for you." Daniel turned slowly. Sophia glowed in the moonlight, her golden hair catching every shimmer, her diamond earrings flashing. She looked perfect as she always did. But tonight, perfection felt like a mask. "I needed some air," he said calmly. She glided toward him, her silk gown brushing the floor. "Of course." It was such a silly interruption. "But don't worry, I've taken care of it." Her voice carried a sharp edge hidden behind sweetness. "The girl won't trouble us again." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Maya?" "Yes." Sophia's smile tightened. "I spoke to the manager. She will be dismissed after tonight." Words struck him. Maya was about to lose her only livelihood because she dared to speak. Daniel's jaw tensed. "Is that necessary?" Sophia's laugh was light, but her eyes hardened. "Darling, of course it is. Do you want servants who spread superstitions at our parties? Imagine the headlines tomorrow if people say your fiancé was insulted by a maid." Her tone dripped with contempt. Daniel nodded slowly, but inside, unease grew. Had always admired Sophia's confidence, her ability to command. But tonight it sounded less like confidence and more like cruelty. When they returned inside, the party was fading. Guests were leaving, wrapping fur coats around their shoulders, drivers waiting outside with cars lined up. The chandeliers still sparkled, but the magic of the night had broken. Daniel moved among the guests with a polite smile, thanking them for coming. Yet his mind was far away. Every time his eyes searched the room, he looked for one figure, the girl in plain black. Maya was near the back, silently stacking empty plates. She kept her head bowed, avoiding his gaze. But Daniel noticed her shoulders were tense, as if she carried a weight heavier than trays. Sophia saw where his eyes strayed and tightened her grip on his arm. "Ignore her," she whispered coldly. "She doesn't belong in our world." Daniel didn't answer. His instincts were at war. Later, after the last guest left and the orchestra packed away their instruments, the ballroom emptied. Workers bustled, cleaning the mess, sweeping away the broken glass, wiping spilled wine from the marble floor. Sophia disappeared to speak with the event manager, her heels clicking sharply against the stone. Daniel took the chance to approach. "Maya." She flinched when his shadow fell over her. Sir, she whispered, her eyes wide. Daniel lowered his voice. Maya, I need you to tell me the truth. Her hands tightened around the tray she held. She glanced nervously toward the door where Sophia had gone. I shouldn't. I'll protect you, Daniel said firmly. Whatever it is, you can trust me. For a moment, her eyes searched his face, those blue eyes that were calm, steady, almost begging her to speak. Something inside her broke. I've seen this before, she whispered. Years ago, I was working in another house. A man. He drank from a glass that looked just like yours tonight. He never got up again. Daniel's chest tightened. Maya's voice shook. They said it was illness, but I knew. I saw the way the servant who handed him the glass looked afraid, just like me tonight. Her breath trembled. When I saw your drink, I felt it again. The same warning, the same fear. I couldn't let you drink it, Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to dismiss it as imagination, but he couldn't erase the image of Sophia's panic when the glass shattered. Sophia's voice suddenly rang from across the room. Daniel, Maya jumped, quickly stepping back, clutching her tray like a shield. Sophia approached with a radiant smile, though her eyes were sharp. There you are. The car is ready. Her gaze slid toward Maya like a knife. You're still here? Haven't you caused enough trouble for one night? Maya lowered her head, whispering, I'm sorry. Ma'am. Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. For a second, he wanted to defend her, to tell Sophia she had done nothing wrong. But the weight of the night kept his tongue heavy. Let's go, darling, Sophia said sweetly, tugging his arm. Had enough drama. Daniel allowed her to lead him out, but his thoughts didn't leave Maya. In the car, silence hung between them. Sophia leaned back against the leather seats, scrolling through her phone, her diamonds flashing under the streetlights. Daniel watched her from the corner of his eye. She was beautiful, smart, admired. The woman everyone said he should marry. But tonight, for the first time, Daniel wondered if beauty could hide something dangerous, and deep inside, he felt Maya's whisper echo once more. Some faces are not what they seem. When they reached his estate, Sophia kissed his cheek, her lips soft but cold. Good night, darling. Tomorrow we'll laugh about this. Daniel forced a smile and watched her disappear into the guest wing. But sleep never came. He lay awake. In his room, staring at the ceiling, his mind circling like a restless storm, the glass of wine, Maya's trembling eyes, Sophia's panic. He sat up suddenly. He needed answers. The next morning, Daniel called for his driver. Take me into the city, he ordered. Instead of heading to his office or meeting with investors, he stopped at the small servant quarters near the edge of town where Maya lived. When she opened the door, shock spread across her face. Sir? Why? Why are you here? Daniel spoke quietly. Because I need the truth. All of it. Maya hesitated, glancing at her neighbors who peeked curiously from behind doors. Then she stepped aside. Come in. Inside her tiny room, the walls were bare, the furniture old, the air filled with the faint smell of bread and tea. Nothing about it belonged to wealth. But Daniel felt more honesty in that space than in the grandest hall. Maya sat nervously, folding her hands. I'm sorry if I ruined your night. Daniel shook his head. You may have saved my life. Her eyes widened. He leaned forward. Tell me everything you know about that night from years ago. And slowly, trembling, Maya began to speak. Her words painted a picture of betrayal, of secrets whispered in shadows, of poison hidden in crystal glasses. She described the wealthy man who died suddenly, the fiancé who smiled at his funeral, the whispers that no one dared to investigate. Daniel's heart pounded as the pieces fell together. The story was too familiar, too close to his own. When Maya finally stopped, her eyes filled with tears. That's why I couldn't let you drink, because I saw her face. It's the same look I saw that night years ago on your fiancé. Daniel sat back, breathless. The truth was no longer a whisper. It was a storm, and in that storm one question burned inside him. Had he fallen in love with a woman who planned to destroy him? The morning sun streamed into Daniel's estate, filling the grand dining hall with golden light. The table was already set with silver dishes and fresh fruit. Sophia sat at the far end, sipping coffee, her flawless smile greeting him as though last night's drama had never happened. "Good morning, darling," she said sweetly. "You look tired. Didn't sleep well?" Daniel forced a smile, hiding the storm inside. "I had a lot on my mind." Sophia reached across the table for a strawberry, her diamond bracelet glinting. "Don't worry. Tonight, we have another dinner. More important people to impress. Soon everyone will forget that silly girl's outburst." Her words stung, and she spoke of Maya as though she were dirt beneath her shoes. But Daniel stayed quiet, masking his thoughts. Inside, however, he had made a decision. He would not confront Sophia directly. Not yet. Instead, he would watch. He would test her. If there was truth in Maya's warning, it would show. And if not, then his doubts would finally rest. That night, Daniel invited a small group of investors to his private estate. The dinner was formal, yet smaller than usual. Sophia shone like always, welcoming the guests, her laugh echoing like music across the marble hall. But Daniel's eyes stayed sharp. When the waiter brought in wine, Daniel leaned back casually. "I'll pass tonight," he said. "But Sophia, you should enjoy." Sophia hesitated just for a second. But so quick no one else would have noticed. But Daniel did. Her hand froze near the glass. Then slowly she picked it up. Her smile returned. "Of course." She took a sip, her eyes flicking toward Daniel as if to see his reaction. Daniel hid the chill that crept up his spine. Later, after the guests left and the house fell silent, Daniel sat alone in his study. The fire burned low, casting shadows. On the walls, Sophia entered, her gown shimmering. "Why didn't you drink tonight?" she asked softly. Daniel shrugged. Didn't feel like it. Her eyes lingered on him. Strange. He never refused wine, especially not with investors. The air between them grew heavy. Daniel kept his face calm. "Maybe I'm changing." Sophia's smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Long as you don't change too much." She kissed his cheek, her lips cold against his skin, and left the room. Daniel exhaled slowly. Every word, every glance tonight had felt like a chess move. The game had begun. The following days, Daniel continued his silent tests. At business lunches, he avoided drinks poured in front of him. At parties, he let others take the first sip. Each time, Sophia's eyes revealed something: annoyance, tension. Sometimes the briefest flicker of fear, but she was careful. Always. Careful, and Daniel, for the first time, saw the woman he loved not as a fiancée, but as a mystery. One evening, he asked Sophia to join him for a private dinner at home. No guests, no distractions. Just the two of them. The table was set beautifully, candlelight flickering. Daniel had arranged for the chef to prepare their favorite dishes. When the wine arrived, Daniel lifted his glass slowly, studying Sophia. She raised hers too, smiling softly. "To us," she whispered. Daniel tilted the glass toward his lips, then stopped. "Actually," he said, setting it down, "you drink first?" Sophia blinked, her smile tightening. "Darling, don't be silly. Please," Daniel insisted gently, his eyes steady on hers. For a moment, silence filled the air. The candles flickered, the clock ticked. Daniel could almost hear his own heartbeat. Finally, Sophia raised the glass, her hand perfectly steady. She took a slow sip, then another, her eyes never leaving his. "There," she said smoothly. "Happy now?" Daniel forced a smile, but inside, doubt grew even darker. She was too calm, too controlled. After dinner, when Sophia left the table, Daniel quietly called the head servant. "Dispose of my wine," he whispered, "but do not let her know." Though. The servant nodded, slipping the glass away into the shadows. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the flickering flames in the fireplace. If Maya was right, then danger was sitting across the table every night, smiling sweetly, planning carefully. And if Maya was wrong, Then he was destroying his own love with suspicion. The weight of the choice grew heavier with each passing day. At night, Daniel found himself walking the halls of his estate, restless, haunted by Maya's trembling eyes and Sophia's perfect smile. Two faces, two truths. Which one was real? Finally, Daniel decided he couldn't play this game alone. He needed answers. Solid answers. And there was only one person he could trust to help him find them. Maya. The next morning, he sent his driver to bring Maya to the estate. She entered, nervously dressed simply, her eyes wide as she stepped into the golden halls that seemed like another world compared to her tiny home. "Sir?" she whispered, bowing slightly. Daniel motioned for her to sit. "Maya, I need your help." She looked startled. "My help? But you're not just anything," Daniel interrupted firmly. "You're the only one who warned me. I can't ignore it anymore." Maya's lips parted, but she said nothing. Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I want you to watch, to listen, to notice things I cannot. Sophia, she hides everything behind a smile. But if there's something to be found, you'll see it." Maya swallowed hard, her hands twisting nervously. "And if I'm wrong?" Daniel's voice softened. "Then I'll know, and I can finally put this to rest." She nodded slowly. "All right, I'll help you." That night, Sophia never noticed the quiet girl in the corner of the hall, carrying trays, refilling glasses, her eyes sharper than anyone knew. And Daniel, seated beside his glowing fiancée, felt the storm of truth drawing closer. For soon, the mask would slip, and when it did, love itself would be tested. The evening glittered with soft lights as guests arrived at Daniel's estate once more. Laughter and music filled the halls, golden chandeliers casting warm light over polished marble. Everything looked perfect, but beneath the beauty, a game was being played. Daniel sat at the head of the long dining table, his smile calm, his eyes sharp. Beside him sat Sophia, radiant in a gown of shimmering silver, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She was the perfect fiancée, charming, graceful, admired by all, and yet hidden among the servers. Moving quietly with a tray in her hands was Maya. Her plain black uniform made her invisible to the guests. But her eyes were wide, watchful. She wasn't here to serve, she was here to protect. Daniel raised his glass when wine was poured, but as always, he did not drink first. Instead, he let it sit in his hand as he spoke with the guests, laughing politely. Watching carefully, Sophia leaned close, her voice soft. "Darling, you must drink. Everyone is waiting for your toast." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "Then, they can wait a little longer." Round the table, no one noticed the tension. Dud. She saw the way Sophia's fingers tightened slightly around her own glass. How her jaw clenched for just a second before she let her laughter flow again. It was small, it's almost invisible, but it was a crack. Later in the night, when the music grew louder and the guests were distracted, Maya slipped quietly toward the side table where open bottles of wine were placed. Her heart pounded as she scanned the bottles, and then she saw it. 2 bottles looked the same, their labels identical. But one was positioned differently, standing slightly apart. Its cork had been replaced less neatly, as though opened and closed in a hurry. Maya froze. Her hands shook as she reached for it, but before she could touch the bottle, a shadow fell over her. "Sophia, is something wrong, dear?" Sophia's voice was smooth, but her eyes glinted dangerously. Maya's throat went dry. She lowered her gaze quickly. "No, ma'am. I was only arranging them." Sophia's smile lingered as she stepped closer. Her hand brushed the bottle Maya had almost touched. "Careful. These are very expensive. One mistake, and it could cost more than you can imagine." Maya nodded quickly, backing away. Her heart hammered as she returned to the corner. From across the room, Daniel noticed the exchange. Sophia returned to him with her flawless smile. Maya's face was pale. Something had happened. After the guests left, and the house grew quiet, Daniel found Maya waiting in the servants' hall, her hands clutching her apron. "She knows," Maya whispered. "She saw me near the bottles. She warned me." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Warned you? How?" Maya swallowed hard. "She said one mistake could cost more than I imagine." Why Daniel's chest tightened. He sat heavily on a chair, his thoughts racing. Sophia's words were too sharp, too pointed. It wasn't a casual comment, it was a threat. But there was more. Maya leaned forward, her voice shaking. "Sir, one of the bottles looked different. It was opened, then closed again. Not like the others, I think. I think that's where the danger is." Daniel's breath slowed. The first time, suspicion wasn't just in his head. It had evidence. A bottle. That night, while Sophia slept in the guest wing, Daniel entered the wine cellar alone. Shelves stretched high with rows of bottles, hundreds of them, collected from across the world. His eyes scanned until he found it, the bottle Maya described. He lifted it carefully, holding it under the lantern light. At first glance, it looked normal, but as he tilted it, he noticed a faint line near the cork, as though tampered with. His heart pounded. He set the bottle aside, locking it in a small chest. He would send it secretly to be tested. If Maya was right, then the truth would no longer be a whisper, would be proof. The next morning, Sophia entered the breakfast hall, glowing as always, her silk robe flowing. She kissed Daniel's cheek. "Sweetly, did you sleep well, darling?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "Better than I expected." Sophia poured herself tea, her movements graceful, her smile unbroken. But Daniel watched her differently now. He no longer saw beauty, he saw calculation. And when her eyes drifted briefly toward the wine rack in the corner of the room, Daniel's suspicion hardened. She noticed the missing bottle, but she said nothing. For the next 2 days, Daniel waited anxiously for the results. He went through his business meetings, shook hands with investors, smiled at photographers. But world, he was still the young millionaire, living a perfect life with his perfect fiancée, but inside he was counting hours. Finally, late one night, an envelope arrived. Daniel tore it open with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the paper once, twice. His breath caught the wine. "It's been poisoned." Daniel dropped heavily into his chair, his head in his hands. It was true. Everything Maya had whispered, everything he had feared it was real. Sophia had placed death in front of him, hidden behind crystal glass and sweet smiles. His stomach turned cold. The woman he was planning to marry was not his savior. She was his enemy, but Daniel knew he couldn't move Res. Sophia was clever. If she sensed he knew the truth, she would strike first. He had to play carefully. He had to outsmart her, and for that, he needed Maya more than ever. The next evening, he met Maya secretly in the garden, under the cover of night. The fountain trickled softly, moonlight casting silver across the flowers. He handed her the paper. She read, her eyes widening, tears filling them. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew what I saw." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You saved me, Maya. If not for you, I would already be—" He stopped, unable to finish. Maya lowered her head, her voice breaking. "But she won't stop. Not now. Not if she knows you suspect her." Daniel looked up at the stars, his heart heavy. "Then I'll let her think I don't suspect anything. I'll let her believe she's winning." His voice grew colder, sharper, and when the mask finally slips, I'll be ready. In the mansion's high window, unseen in the shadows, Sophia stood watching. Her smile curved slowly, chillingly. She had seen Daniel leave. She had seen him meet Maya in the garden, and she knew her game was no longer a secret. But Sophia had never lost a game. Not yet. The morning sun spilled across the grand dining room, but warmth was nowhere to be found. Daniel sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from his untouched coffee. Across from him, Sophia smiled sweetly, her silk robe shimmering in the light. "You're quiet this morning, darling," she said softly. "Something on your mind?" Daniel lifted his eyes. Her face was perfect, too perfect. Every word, every glance, felt calculated now. "I didn't sleep well," he replied calmly. Sophia's smile didn't falter. Then you must learn to rest. A man with as much responsibility as you cannot afford to be weak. Her tone was sweet, but Daniel caught the edge hidden beneath. Weak. The word echoed like a blade. Later that day, Daniel walked through the city. With his assistant, speaking with investors, inspecting new projects. He looked every bit the confident young millionaire. But inside he was restless. Sophia knew something. He could feel it in her eyes, in the way she watched him too closely now. She was no longer just pretending. She was studying him, measuring him, waiting for a mistake. And Daniel realized the truth. The game had turned. That evening, Sophia arranged a small dinner for just the two of them. The table was lit with candles, the air filled with the smell of roasted lamb and herbs. She sat opposite him, her smile glowing like a painting. "Do you trust me, Daniel?" she asked suddenly, her eyes sharp in the candlelight. Daniel's hand froze on his fork. The question cut deeper than the knife beside his plate. He forced a small smile. "Of course I do." Her eyes narrowed slightly, then softened again. "Good, because trust is everything. Without it, love dies." She raised her glass, waiting. Daniel raised his too, his heart beat loud in his ears. For a moment they stared at each other over the candle flames, two masks facing one another. Then Daniel placed his glass down without drinking. Sophia's smile never broke, but her eyes darkened. That night, as Daniel walked the halls unable to sleep, he caught something unusual. From the guest wing, Sophia's voice drifted softly. He paused outside the door, listening. "Yes. He suspects nothing," she whispered. Silence. Then again, "No. He won't live long enough to change his mind." Daniel's chest tightened, his fists clenched. She wasn't alone. She was speaking to someone. But who? Footsteps echoed, and he quickly moved back into the shadows. The door opened, and Sophia stepped out, her silk robe flowing. She carried a phone in her hand, slipping it into her pocket as she walked down the corridor. Humming softly, Daniel's breath caught. She was plotting, but with whom? The next morning, Daniel summoned Maya secretly in the garden once again. She looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her apron. "She's on to us," Daniel whispered. "Last night I heard her speaking on the phone. She knows I'm suspicious." Maya's eyes widened. "What did she say?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "That I won't live long enough to change my mind." Maya gasped softly, covering her mouth. Daniel looked at her, his voice low, steady. "This is no longer about doubts. It's about survival." That evening, Daniel tried a different approach. He acted warmer, more affectionate toward Sophia. He laughed at her jokes, complimented her beauty, let his hand linger on hers. But beneath the smile, he was watching Sophia too, seemed to change. She leaned closer, her voice softer, her laughter brighter. To anyone else it would look like love. But Daniel could feel the tension beneath, like two dancers circling one another, waiting for the first misstep. Later, Sophia led him into the library, where a single bottle of wine sat waiting on the polished oak table. "I thought we could share something special tonight," she said. Her eyes glowing, Daniel's chest tightened. She poured the wine herself, her movements graceful, almost ritualistic. She handed him a glass, her fingers brushing his. "Drink with me," she whispered. The room felt colder. The walls seemed to close in. Daniel lifted the glass, his heart pounding, stared into her eyes, searching for a crack, a slip, anything. But Sophia's gaze was steady, confident. Seconds stretched like hours. Then Daniel smiled faintly. "Not tonight. My head aches." He set the glass down. Sophia's lips curved slowly, not anger, not disappointment, but something worse. Amusement. "Double quotes, as you wish, darling," she whispered. After she left the room, Daniel collapsed into the chair, his hands trembling. He had come close to close. The poison was no longer a whisper. It was sitting in front of him, waiting, watching. And Sophia knew he wouldn't drink. which meant she was already planning her next move. The next morning, Maya brought him tea in the study, her eyes filled with worry. "You can't stay here. She will find another way." Daniel shook his head. "If I run, she wins. I need to know her plan. I need to know who is helping her." Maya lowered her voice. "Then let me watch her more closely. She doesn't see. Me to her, I'm invisible." Daniel hesitated. "It's dangerous." Maya's voice trembled, but her eyes were firm. "It's already dangerous. For you, for me, for anyone near her. If we don't stop her now, you'll never be safe." Daniel looked at her, truly looked at her. She was trembling, poor, powerless. And yet she had more courage than anyone he knew. Finally he nodded. "Then watch, carefully." That night, as Sophia entertained herself in the music room, Maya quietly followed at a distance. She stayed in the shadows, listening, waiting, and then she saw it. Sophia slipped into the study, closing the door behind her, through the crack. Maya saw her take out her phone, dialing quickly. "Yes," Sophia whispered. "The bottle didn't work. He's cautious." Pause. Then we move faster. "It must look like an accident, something no one can trace back to me." Maya's blood ran cold. She backed away quietly, her hands shaking, till she found Daniel in the hall. "She's planning something worse," Maya whispered. "Not poison, an accident." Daniel's face hardened. The game was no longer about avoiding the glass now. It was about surviving the night. The estate felt different the next morning. The air itself seemed heavy, as though the walls knew what was coming. Daniel dressed carefully, his mind sharper than ever. Sophia's words haunted him. It must look like an accident. She would not stop. And he would not wait as he stepped into the marble hallway. Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs, glowing in a flowing cream dress. Her smile was flawless, her voice sweet. "Good morning, darling. Did you sleep well?" Daniel forced a calm smile, better than I expected. Descended gracefully, each step soft and deliberate. But Daniel's eyes didn't miss the faint glimmer of satisfaction in her gaze, as though she already knew something he didn't. Breakfast was served in the glass atrium. Sunlight poured through tall windows, filling the room with warmth. Servant poured Daniel's tea, but before he could touch it, Maya quietly brushed past, whispering under her breath, "Don't." Daniel froze, lowering his hand. Sophia raised her brows. "Not thirsty, darling? Not today?" he said calmly, pushing the cup aside. Her lips curved into that cold amusement again. Later. Daniel prepared for his business trip into the city. Sophia insisted on walking him out. "You've been so tense lately," she said softly as they reached the grand staircase. "Perhaps you should relax. Life is fragile, after all. One wrong step." She let her voice trail off, her eyes drifting. Down the staircase with chilling meaning, Daniel's pulse quickened. He glanced at the marble steps, polished smooth like glass. To smooth, he placed his hand on the railing, moving carefully. His shoes slid slightly, but he caught himself. Then he noticed. A faint layer of oil glistened across one step, invisible unless the light caught it. His breath caught. Sophia smiled sweetly. "Careful, darling. You wouldn't want an accident." Daniel descended slowly, never taking his eyes off her. For the first time, he felt death itself standing between them. The car ride into the city was silent. Daniel stared out the window, his reflection pale against the glass. Aya sat across from him, her voice low. "She tried, didn't she?" Loaded faintly. "The stairs? If I had fallen?" Maya's hands trembled in her lap. "She won't stop. Next time it will be worse." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we have to be ready. I'll play her game, but I won't lose." That evening, Sophia suggested a drive to the countryside. "We've been locked inside these walls too long," she said sweetly. "Fresh air will do us good." Daniel hesitated. A countryside road, quiet and empty, was the perfect stage for an accident. But he couldn't refuse if he did. She would grow suspicious. "Of course," he said with a faint smile. The car was sleek and black, gliding along winding roads under the fading sunset. Sophia sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Isn't it beautiful?" she whispered, gazing at the hills. Daniel nodded, his eyes fixed on the road. Okay, every muscle in his body was tense. Suddenly, Sophia leaned forward.
Ellie, look at that view.
She pointed toward the valley. Instinctively, Daniel glanced for a second, just as the steering wheel jerked in her hand. The car swerved violently toward the cliff's edge. "Careful," Sophia cried, pretending to panic, her hand still on the wheel. Daniel yanked it back, his heart hammering, tires screeching as the car veered inches from the drop. Dust and pebbles flew into the air, the abyss yawning below. For a moment, the world went silent. Then Daniel straightened the car, his knuckles white against the wheel. Beside him, Sophia let out a soft laugh. "My goodness, what a fright. You must keep your eyes on the road, darling." Her tone was light. Playfully, yet her eyes glinted with satisfaction. Daniel said nothing, but inside his fury grew. She had almost killed him, and no one would have believed it wasn't an accident. When they returned to the estate, Daniel excused himself, locking the study door behind him, sank into the chair, his body trembling with controlled rage. She wanted him dead, and she was clever enough to make the world believe it was fate. But now, Daniel understood something vital. He couldn't simply defend, he had to attack. Late that night, Maya crept into the study with tea. She placed the cup gently on the desk, her eyes filled with worry. "You're shaking," she whispered. Daniel met her gaze, his voice low and hard. "She tried twice in one day. Poison didn't work. The stairs failed. The car almost." He stopped, his jaw clenching. Maya's hands trembled as she clasped them together. "What will you do?" Daniel's eyes darkened. "I'll set a trap." Maya's breath caught. "A trap."
What?
Daniel leaned forward, his voice sharp. "She thinks she's the hunter, but now I'll make her reveal herself in front of everyone. No more whispers, no more shadows. The truth will come out." Maya's lips parted in shock, but how? Daniel's eyes narrowed. "At the next party, she'll think it's hers, but it will be mine." The mansion fell into silence that night, but Daniel did not sleep. He sat by the fire, watching the flames devour the wood, his mind already building the plan. He would let Sophia believe she had control. He would let her think her accident would succeed, and then when the mask slipped, when her hand revealed the knife hidden beneath the smile, he would expose her before every eye in the room. But upstairs, Sophia sat at her vanity, brushing her golden hair slowly, her reflection glowing in the mirror. She, too, was planning, and her smile never wavered. Soon, she whispered to herself, very soon, the estate looked peaceful on the outside. Birds sang in the garden, the fountains sparkled in the sun, and servants moved about with quiet obedience. But inside the mansion, two storms were brewing. Daniel sat in his study with the curtains drawn, the world shut out. Papers were spread across his desk, but his eyes weren't on them. He was writing names. Names of guests. Names of witnesses. Names of people who would come to the next party. It would not be Sophia's party. It would be his. He leaned back, his pen tapping against the wood. She thinks she's clever. She thinks her beauty is enough to blind everyone. But the moment her mask slips, they will all see what she really is. Maya entered quietly, carrying a tray of food. She placed it before him, but Daniel did not touch. You haven't eaten," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "I don't have time. Everything must be perfect." Maya hesitated. "Perfect? What do you mean?" He looked up at her, his eyes hard. "I'm going to host a gathering, bigger than the last. Wealthy investors, politicians, people who admire Sophia for her charm. She won't resist showing off, and that's when it will happen." Maya's voice trembled. "You mean you'll make her reveal herself?" "Yes," Daniel said firmly. "I'll let her believe she has another chance, another accident, but this time the trap will close." Maya swallowed. "If she doesn't fall for it?" Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. "Then I'll make her." For the next few days, the mansion buzzed with preparations. Invitations were sent to the most powerful families in the city. Expensive decorations were ordered. Musicians were hired. Sophia was delighted. She walked through the halls, her laughter echoing another party. "Oh, darling, how thoughtful of you. I was beginning to think you had lost your sense of fun." Daniel smiled faintly. "I thought it was time. After all, life is too short not to celebrate." Sophia's eyes glittered. "Yes," she whispered, "too short." Maya, who overheard, felt a chill run through her at night. Daniel worked alone in the study, drawing plans on parchment. He marked the hall where guests would gather, the tables where food and wine would be served, the balcony that overlooked the garden. Every corner of the mansion became part of his silent war. Maya once found him staring at the grand chandelier, its crystals sparkling like ice above the ballroom. His jaw was tight, his hands folded behind his back. "Are you thinking about her?" Maya asked. Daniel didn't look away. "That chandelier has hung here for decades, strong, heavy, beautiful. But if one piece of it fell, it could kill man instantly." Maya's breath caught. "You think she'd try something with it?" Daniel finally turned to her. "I don't know. That's the point. I must be ready for anything." Sophia, meanwhile, was playing her own game. She spent hours at the jeweler buying new diamonds. She ordered gowns from Paris, fabrics that shimmered like water. She wanted every eye on her. One evening, she leaned against Daniel's arm, her perfume strong and sweet. "You're generous, my love. Hosting such a grand night just for me? Sometimes I wonder if I deserve you." Daniel kissed her hand politely. "Oh, you deserve much more than me." Sophia smiled, satisfied, never realizing the double edge of his words. The night of the party arrived. The mansion glittered with golden lights, carriages lined the driveway, and the sound of violins floated through the halls. Servants moved swiftly, carrying trays of champagne and silver dishes. Daniel stood at the entrance in a black suit, tall and calm. Beside him, Sophia dazzled in a gown of emerald silk, her diamonds scattering light like stars. Guests gasped at her beauty, their admiration feeding her pride. Maya moved quietly in the background, her eyes sharp, watching every detail. As the evening grew lively, Daniel walked among the guests, smiling, speaking politely. But his eyes were always searching for Sophia's next move. She laughed with the mayor. She whispered to a banker. She charmed every man who looked her way. But her eyes, her sharp blue eyes, kept returning to Daniel. At one point she approached him, placing a hand on his chest. "Are you enjoying yourself, darling? Or are you still too tense?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I'm waiting for the best part. And what is that?" she teased. "When the masks come off." Sophia tilted her head, her smile faltering for just a moment. Then she laughed as if it were a joke. But deep down, something in her tightened. The orchestra played louder. Couples danced across the marble floor. Chandelier sparkled above, like frozen fire. Daniel lifted a glass of wine, though he didn't drink. He watched as Sophia touched a servant's arm, whispering something into his ear. The servant nodded and disappeared toward the kitchen. Maya noticed too. Her eyes widened, and she hurried to Daniel's side. "She's planning something." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Good. Let her." Minutes later, the servant returned with a tray of drinks. He moved straight toward Daniel, offering the glass Sophia had chosen. Sophia's eyes followed eagerly, her smile small but sharp. Daniel reached for the glass, then stopped. Instead of drinking, he turned slowly toward Sophia. His voice was calm, but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Strange," he said, studying the wine. "This glass looks different." Guests nearby glanced at one another. Sophia tilted her head. "Different. Don't be silly, darling. It's just wine." Daniel's eyes stayed locked on hers. "Then you won't mind drinking it." The room went still. Sophia froze, her smile brittle. "Me." She gave a soft laugh. "Darling, you know I don't drink red wine." Daniel raised a brow. "A sip won't hurt." Gasps echoed around the hall. All eyes turned to Sophia. For the first time, her mask wavered. Sophia's hand trembled slightly as she set down her fan. Her smile stayed, but her eyes flashed with quiet fury. "Really, Daniel," she said sweetly. "Are you trying to embarrass me in front of our guests?" Daniel leaned closer, his voice low and sharp. No, my love. I'm trying to save myself. The words cut through the air like a blade. Maya's heart pounded. The guests whispered, their voices rising. The room was shifting, and Sophia knew it. Her smile dropped completely now, her eyes cold as ice. She reached for the glass slowly, her fingers wrapping around it with deliberate grace. Daniel's muscles tightened, ready. Would she drink? Would she refuse? Would she suddenly? Sophia turned and tossed the glass onto the floor. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, the dark liquid spreading like blood across the marble. The room gasped. Sophia straightened, her chin high. How dare you insult me like this, she hissed. In my own home? Daniel's voice thundered through the hall. My home. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia's chest rose and fell quickly, her mask fully gone now. For the first time the guests saw not a charming beauty, but a dangerous woman with fury in her eyes. And Daniel knew. At last, the trap had begun to close. The shattered glass sparkled across the marble floor like drops of blood. Guests stared in shock, their whispers buzzing through the air like restless bees. Sophia stood tall, her emerald gown flowing around her, her chest rising and falling as if she had just fought a battle. Her smile was gone, her beauty colder, sharper. Daniel did not move. His voice echoed in the silence. This is my house, my party, and no one threatens me here. The words carried weight, heavy enough to shake even the wealthiest. Guests. Sophia's fingers clenched against her gown. For a second, her eyes blazed like fire. Then, as quickly as a storm passes, her expression softened. She smiled, but it was thin, brittle, and false. Oh, darling, she said sweetly. How dramatic you are. Surely everyone here understands it was just a misunderstanding. You were only joking, weren't you? Her voice wrapped around the crowd like silk, begging them to believe her. Several guests nodded uncertainly, wanting to smooth the tension, to return to the laughter and music. But Daniel didn't let her escape. He stepped closer, his shadow falling across her face. A misunderstanding? His eyes locked on hers. Then tell me, why wouldn't you take a sip? The guests stilled again, their whispers dying. Sophia laughed, light and airy. Must I explain everything? I simply don't like the taste. Of red wine? Daniel tilted his head. Strange. I've seen you drink it many times before. Gasps rippled through the hall. Sophia's lips tightened. Maya, watching from the corner, felt her own breath shake. Daniel was striking hard, refusing to let her slip back behind her mask. Sophia's eyes darted across the crowd. She could feel it, their doubt, their suspicion. And suspicion was poison to her charm. Suddenly, she moved. She bent gracefully, picking up a shard of glass from the floor, holding it between her delicate fingers. The red wine still dripped. From it, dark and heavy, she smiled again, her voice calm. If you insist, darling, then I'll prove it. Before anyone could react, she lifted the sharp crystal shard toward her lips. The guests gasped in horror. Daniel's eyes widened. For a heartbeat, he thought she would do it, slice her lips just to silence him. But at the last moment, she let the shard fall, shattering once more against the marble. Her laughter rang through the room, high and mocking. See, you're making everyone nervous with your little games. The crowd exhaled in relief, though unease remained in their eyes. Daniel knew then she would not fall icily. She would fight. She would twist and charm until the very end. But he was ready. He raised his hand, and silence fell again. Ladies and gentlemen, he said calmly, perhaps I've been too forward. Perhaps I've embarrassed my fiancé without cause. Sophia blinked in surprise. He was retreating. Daniel's voice dropped lower. But I promise you, this truth always reveals itself. When it does, no beauty, no diamonds, no smile can hide it. The guests looked from him to Sophia, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Sophia forced a laugh, clapping her hands. Well said, my love. Now let's have more music. The night is still young. The orchestra began again, though the notes were shaky. Couples returned to the floor, but the atmosphere had changed. Shadows clung to the golden lights. Whispers followed Sophia wherever she moved. Her mask was cracking. Later, as the party thinned, Sophia slipped onto the balcony alone. The cool night air brushed against her skin, but her blood boiled. Her fingers curled around the railing, nails digging into the wood. "Humiliate me in front of them," she whispered to herself. "Turn them against me? He thinks he's clever, but he's nothing without me." Her reflection glimmered in the glass doors behind her. She looked at it carefully, still beautiful, still flawless. But for the first time, she saw what Daniel saw. The cracks. And she hated him for it. Inside, Daniel stood with Maya near the staircase. "You pushed her too far," Maya whispered. Nervously, "What if she strikes tonight?" "She won't," Daniel said coldly. "Not here. Not while the guests are still watching. But soon, very soon, she'll try again. And this time, everyone will see it for what it is." Maya's voice trembled. "What if you're wrong?" Daniel's gaze was fixed on the balcony, where Sophia's silhouette glowed against the moonlight. His jaw tightened. "Then I won't live to regret it." The night dragged on. The guests left one by one, their faces filled with curiosity and unease. When the last carriage rolled away, the mansion fell silent. Sophia returned inside, her steps slow and elegant. She met Daniel's eyes across the empty hall, and for a long moment they said nothing. Finally, she smiled faintly. "You embarrassed? Me tonight, darling? That was unwise." Daniel's voice was calm. "You tried to kill me. That was unwise." Their eyes locked. No more pretending, no more masks. For the first time, the war was open. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He sat in the study, staring at the fire until it burned low. His mind replayed every moment, the broken glass, the whispers, the cracks in her smile. Sophia was cornered now. A cornered enemy was the most dangerous. Maya entered quietly, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "You should rest." Daniel shook his head. "She won't stop. Tonight was just the beginning. The next move will be worse." Maya's eyes glistened with fear. "Then what will you do?" Daniel's voice was low, steady. "I'll do what I must. I'll end this. Before she ends me." Upstairs, Sophia stood before her mirror, brushing her hair with slow, deliberate strokes. Her reflection smiled back at her, calm, radiant, untouchable. But inside, her fury burned brighter than ever. "You think you've trapped me, Daniel?" she whispered. "But tomorrow, you'll wish you'd never crossed me." She set the brush down, her hand steady, and her smile returned, cold and perfect. And in that silence, the house itself seemed to hold its breath. The morning sun painted the estate in soft gold, but inside the mansion, the air was heavy. Like the calm before a storm, Sophia sat at the breakfast table, gown pale blue, her smile glowing as if nothing had happened the night before. She sipped her tea delicately, the picture of Grace. Daniel entered moments later, his steps slow, measured. He greeted her with a polite nod, taking his seat at the far end of the long table. For a while, silence stretched between them, broken only by the clink of silverware. Finally, Sophia spoke. "You were bold last night," she said lightly, as though discussing the weather. "Bold and foolish." Daniel's eyes lifted to hers. Foolish would have been drinking that wine. Her smile deepened, but her eyes were cold. "Humiliated me in front of our guests. Do you think they will still admire you when they realize you have turned paranoid? Suspicion makes a man look weak." Daniel set down his fork. His voice was calm. "Truth makes a man stronger. And you, Sophia, are afraid of the truth." Her jaw tightened for just a moment, then loosened again. She laughed softly. "Afraid?" "Of you, darling. I could destroy you with a whisper." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Then why haven't you?" Their eyes locked, the air between them charged with unspoken threats. Later, when Sophia returned to her chambers, her mask slipped. She slammed the door, her breath quick, her hands trembling. "Expose me, will you?" she hissed. Against me? Her eyes drifted to the vanity, where a small box of glass vials lay hidden beneath silks. Each vial shimmered faintly, clear liquid glistening inside. A poison so subtle it left no taste, no color, just silence. She lifted one vial, holding it against the light. No more games, Daniel. No more witnesses. You'll die quietly in your sleep, and no one will ever suspect. Her smile returned, cruel, final meanwhile in the study. Daniel paced slowly across the carpet, Maya watching him nervously. She strikes soon, Maya whispered. I can feel it. Daniel nodded. Yes, she's desperate now. Desperation makes people reckless. Maya's eyes filled with fear. Then you must run. Leave this house. Leave her. Live. Daniel stopped, turning to her. If I run, she wins. She'll chase me, and she'll keep killing until she gets what she wants. No. The only way is to end it here. Maya clasped her hands. But how? Daniel's voice dropped hard as stone. By letting her try. By making her believe she's won. And then he looked toward the fire. The truth will burn through her lies. Maya shivered. It's dangerous, as Daniel said, his gaze steady. But it's the only way. That night, the mansion lay quiet. Servants retired. To their quarters, the lights dimmed, the hall silent. Sophia entered the study, her gown black as midnight. She moved like a shadow, silent, graceful. In her hand, she held a silver tray with a single glass of wine. She approached Daniel's desk, her lips curving into a faint smile as she placed the glass down. Still working? She asked softly. Daniel looked up, his eyes calm. Yes, too much on my mind. Sophia's voice purred. Then drink. Relax. Forget your worries. She slid the glass closer for me. Daniel studied her carefully. Could almost feel the poison shimmering in the liquid. His heart pounded, but his hand stayed steady as he lifted the glass. Sophia's eyes glowed. Eager, waiting, but Daniel only raised it halfway, then stopped. He set it down again with deliberate calm. Strange, he said quietly. Your hands are trembling. Sophia froze. Daniel leaned back, his gaze sharp. Why are you afraid, Sophia? Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she laughed lightly. Afraid? Don't be ridiculous. But Daniel could see it now, the crack in her mask, the fury beneath. Maya entered suddenly with papers for Daniel. She saw the untouched glass, saw Sophia's hand resting beside it. Her eyes widened, but she said nothing. She simply bowed and left, her silence saying everything. Sophia watched her go, her jaw tightening. Then she leaned close to Daniel, whispering so softly it was almost breath. One day you won't suspect. One day your guard will drop. And when it does, Daniel, I'll be the last face you see. Daniel's pulse hammered, but he forced a calm smile. Then I'll make sure it's tonight. Sophia's eyes widened faintly, just before Daniel lifted the glass again, holding it high. He stood, raising his voice so the servants in the hall could hear. A toast to love, to loyalty, to truth. Sophia stiffened, her smile frozen, and Daniel, without drinking, let the poisoned wine spill slowly into the fire. The flames hissed, crackled, and flared, releasing a faint, acrid smoke. Gasps sounded. From the doorway, as two servants peered in, Sophia's face paled. Daniel turned to them calmly. Strange, isn't it? Wine should not burn like that. The servants looked at Sophia in horror. Her mask shattered. Sophia's breath came fast, her lips parting as though to deny it, but no words came. The silence in the room was heavier than stone. Daniel's voice was low, unshakable.
Al, you tried
To kill me again. And now, everyone knows. Sophia's hands shook violently. For the first time, fear not, fury showed in her eyes, but only for a moment. Then she straightened, her face hard, her beauty cold as ice. If I cannot kill you in secret, she whispered, then I'll kill you in the open. She seized the letter opener from his desk, silver blade flashing in the firelight. Maya's scream echoed from the hall, and the war between them finally turned deadly. The study seemed to shrink. Around them, firelight flickered across the walls, casting long, dancing shadows. The shattered calm of years broke in one heartbeat as Sophia's hand closed around the silver letter opener. Her smile was gone. Her beauty, once her greatest weapon, was now twisted with rage. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, watching the glint of the blade. He had always known this moment would come, yet the sight of her, maskless and feral, sent a chill deep into his bones. Sophia stepped forward, the blade steady, her voice low and sharp. "You thought you could expose me? Humiliate me? Take everything. From me." Her breath came in short bursts. "But I will take your life before you take my name." Daniel did not move. His voice was calm, controlled. "Think carefully, Sophia. This is your last chance to stop." She laughed bitterly, the sound echoing like broken glass. "Stop?
Us?
After everything?" "No, Daniel. This is only the beginning." Maya burst into the room, eyes wide with terror. "Sophia." "No." Sophia's head snapped toward her, fury flashing. "Stay out of this, girl." Maya trembled, but didn't leave. She placed herself between them, her voice shaking but strong. "You don't have to do this. Killing him won't save you. It will only destroy you," Sophia sneered. "Destroy me? He's already trying to do that. He wants the world to see me weak, to see me powerless. I won't allow it." She raised the blade higher. Daniel's eyes darkened. "If you strike me, Sophia, everyone in this house will hear. They will know. And then it truly will be over." Sophia's hand trembled, but her fury held strong. With a sudden scream, she lunged. Daniel moved instantly, sidestepping. The blade slashed across the edge of the desk, scattering papers. Sparks flew as metal struck wood. Maya screamed, "Stop!" Sophia spun, her hair flying, her face wild. She slashed again, fast and desperate. Daniel caught her wrist, gripping it tightly. They struggled, firelight flashing across their faces. The blade hovered inches from Daniel's chest. Sophia's strength was fierce, driven by fury. Daniel's muscles strained, his jaw clenched. "You can't win," he growled. Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. "Then I'll die trying." The struggle knocked against the table. The poisoned wine vials clattered, one rolling across the floor. It burst against the stone hearth, the fire hissing violently as smoke filled the room. The acrid scent burned their throats, making Maya cough violently. Daniel pushed harder, twisting Sophia's wrist. She screamed, the blade cutting her palm. But instead of dropping it, she clung tighter, blood smearing the silver handle. Her eyes blazed. "If I fall, I'll drag you with me." In a final desperate move, she kicked the edge of the table, forcing Daniel off balance. He stumbled, the blade slipping dangerously close to his throat. Maya cried out, rushing forward. "Daniel." She grabbed Sophia's arm with both hands, pulling with all her strength. For a moment, the three of them locked in a deadly knot firelight. Blood, steel, and then the blade slipped free from Sophia's grip. Clattering across the floor, Sophia gasped, staring at her empty, bloody hand. Daniel shoved her back. She stumbled against the desk, breathing hard, her gown torn, her diamonds glinting like shards of ice. For the first time, she looked less like a queen and more like a cornered animal. The door burst open. Two servants stood there, faces pale. With shock, they had heard the screams. Their eyes fell on Sophia, her bloody hand. The blade on the floor, whispers rushed through them like wildfire. She tried to kill him. She tried to kill Mr. Daniel. Sophia's face hardened. Lies. All lies. But her voice shook, and her eyes betrayed her. Daniel stood tall, his breathing heavy but steady. He pointed to the blade. "You all saw it. You heard it. She tried to kill me." The servants looked between them, fear and disbelief warring in their faces. Sophia's mask was gone. There was no charm, no laughter left to save her. She let out a cry of fury, sweeping the desk. Clear with her arm. Papers, pens, and broken glass crashed to the floor. "You'll regret this, Daniel." She shrieked, "I will not fall alone." Her voice echoed through the halls. More servants gathered at the door, their eyes wide, and with that, Sophia ran. She fled the study, her gown whipping behind her like a storm. The mansion erupted into chaos. Daniel collapsed briefly against the desk, his chest heaving. Maya rushed to him, her hand shaking. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head slowly. "No, but this isn't over." Maya's voice broke. "She'll come back. She won't stop." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Then we finish this tonight. No more running, no more whispers. Tonight, Sophia's truth will be seen by all." Meanwhile, Sophia ran through the dark halls, her mind spinning. She had lost the blade, lost the room, lost her mask, but not her will. She paused in the grand corridor, staring up at the glittering chandelier. Her bloody hand clenched tight. "If I can't kill him quietly," she whispered, "then I'll do it in front of everyone. I'll make it his grand finale." Her eyes gleamed with madness as she looked up at the great chain holding the chandelier high. Above the ballroom, her plan was no longer silent. It was loud, deadly, final. The ballroom was alive again. The music playing, the crowd laughing nervously. Guests tried to ignore the unease that had begun to whisper through the mansion. But the air was not the same. It felt heavy, charged, as if the walls themselves were waiting. Sophia stood above them all, hidden in the shadows of the balcony. Her eyes burned as she looked down on the crowd. Her hand, still streaked with blood from the blade, gripped the heavy chain that held the great chandelier. It glittered like 1,000 stars above the party, swaying gently, the candles casting golden light over the floor. To Sophia, it was no longer beauty. It was a weapon. "Let them dance," she whispered to herself. "Let him laugh. Let him smile. Tonight he will fall, and the world will fall silent with him." Daniel walked into the ballroom with Maya beside him. He held his head high, though the weight of the fight in the study still pressed on him. The servants followed closely, whispering what they had seen. Already, rumors spread like fire. Guests noticed the torn edge of his sleeve, the strain in his eyes. Questions rose. What happened? Why does Daniel look so grave? Where's Sophia? Daniel forced a calm smile, but his heart beat hard. He knew Sophia. She wasn't gone. She was waiting. Watching, Maya leaned close, her voice a trembling whisper. "She's not finished. I can feel it." Daniel nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay close to me. Whatever happens, don't leave my side." Up above, Sophia's chest rose and fell as she wrapped the chain tighter around her hand. Her gaze locked on Daniel. She could almost hear his heartbeat from where she stood. Her lips curled. "You ruined me. You embarrassed me. Now I will ruin you. I will make your death the centerpiece of this party." She tugged the chain slightly. The chandelier swayed, its crystals jingling softly like sinister bells below. A few guests looked up, frowning. "Strange. Did you see that?" The music drowned their doubt. Daniel raised his glass of untouched water to make a toast. His voice carried strong, but underneath, it shook with unspoken tension. Two friends, two truth. And to a love that is real, not false. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked at him with confusion, others with curiosity. Maya's eyes darted upward, and in the shimmer of the chandelier, she thought she saw movement, a shadow. Her breath caught. "Daniel," she whispered urgently. "She's up there." Daniel's gaze followed hers, and for a split second, he saw the shape of Sophia's gown in the darkness above. His blood ran cold. Sophia leaned forward, her hair wild, her face pale but burning with rage. She pulled at the chain. Slowly, painfully, the chandelier's metal links began to groan. The sound was soft, hidden under the music, but Daniel heard it, set his glass down, his jaw tightening. He spoke loudly, to distract the guests. "Some people wear masks. They smile, they laugh, but inside, they only hide poison." A hush fell over the room. Whispers started again. Guests leaned forward, eager, uncertain. Above them, Sophia's grip tightened. Sweat ran down her brow. Now she hissed. "Now they'll see your blood." The chandelier jerked violently. This time, Everyone noticed. Gasps filled the ballroom. Heads tilted upward as crystals shook, raining small sparks of light across the floor. Panic rose like smoke. The music stumbled to a stop. Daniel's voice cut through the fear. "Sophia, show yourself. Stop hiding in the shadows." All eyes turned upward. There she was. Sophia stepped out of the darkness onto the balcony, her gown torn, her hair wild, her bloody hand gripping the chain. Her eyes blazed with fury, but her smile was sharp, almost triumphant. "Look at him," she cried, her voice echoing. "You're precious, Daniel. The man you praise, the man you trust, he betrayed me. He tried to destroy me. I will destroy him first." The crowd erupted in shouts. Some cried out in disbelief, others pulled back in fear. Maya stepped forward, her voice breaking. "No, Sophia. You betrayed him. You tried to poison him." Sophia's eyes narrowed at her. "Silence, you worthless girl." Daniel raised his hand, his voice firm. "It's over, Sophia. Everyone can see you now. You've unmasked yourself." Sophia laughed, a chilling, broken sound. "Unmasked. No, Daniel. Tonight I make you my final performance, my masterpiece." And with a scream, she yanked hard on the chain. The chandelier lurched downward. Guests screamed, scattering across the floor. Glass shattered. Crystals rained down. The massive structure swayed violently, ready to fall. Daniel grabbed Maya, pulling her back just as shards crashed around them. The chandelier swung low, missing him by inches before it jerked back up. The chain groaned louder, metal straining. Against metal, Sophia leaned over the railing, her face wild. "Do you see, Daniel? Do you see how icily I can end you?" Maya clung to Daniel's arm, her voice desperate. "She's going to kill everyone. You have to stop her." Daniel's eyes locked on Sophia. For the first time, he saw not the glamorous woman he once loved, but a soul twisted by greed and rage. He stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Sophia, if you want me, then take me. But leave them out of this." What? Sophia froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, her grip on the chain loosened. The guests gasped. Whispers filled the air. Did he really sacrifice himself? Was he truly that brave? Sophia's chest heaved. She screamed again, pulling the chain once more. The chandelier dropped another few feet, smashing part of the table below. Food, glass, and gold decorations scattered across the floor. Chaos erupted. Guests pushed and shoved to escape, their screams rising to the high ceiling. Maya's voice broke in sobs. "Daniel, please, don't let her win." Daniel clenched his fists. His heart pounded like drums. He knew this was it. One move would decide everything. He looked up at Sophia, her silhouette sharp against the golden light of the swinging chandelier, and in that moment, he swore he would end it no matter the cost. The chandelier groaned above the ballroom like a dying beast. Its chain creaked and rattled, crystals falling like sharp rain. Every scream, every crash of shattering glass, echoed through the vast hall. Guests ran toward the exits, their elegant gowns and tuxedos nothing but shadows of panic now. Some stumbled, others cried, but one thing was clear. No one wanted to be anywhere near the chandelier's deadly swing, yet Daniel did not move to escape. He looked upward, his eyes locked on Sophia, who stood wild and trembling on the balcony. Her bloody hand still gripped the chain, her hair tangled, her torn gown glowing like a ghost in the candlelight. For a brief second, silence fell, broken only by the groan of iron. Daniel's voice carried across the chaos. "Sophia," shouted, "this ends now." Sophia's laughter cut through the screams. It was sharp, brittle, broken. "Now, no, Daniel. This ends when you end." She yanked at the chain again, and the chandelier swung dangerously, smashing into another table below. Plates and glasses exploded in sparks of silver and glass. Maya clung to Daniel's arm, her tears streaking her face. "Don't go up there. She'll kill you." Daniel looked down at her, his jaw firm. His hand cupped her shoulder gently. "If I don't, she'll kill everyone else." Maya shook her head. "But you." What if you, Daniel, cut her off? His voice steady but soft. Then at least the truth will be known. She can't hide anymore. Now Maya's grip tightened, but Daniel pulled away gently. His eyes were calm now. He had made his choice. He strode toward the grand staircase. Crowd that remained gasped. Servants and guests pressed against the walls, watching as Daniel climbed step by step, his shadow long against the marble. Sophia's eyes followed him, wild and unblinking. Her lips trembled, though her voice still rang out. You think you're brave, Daniel? You think you can face me? She pulled harder at the chain, the chandelier dropping another foot. Screams tore through the ballroom as sparks flew from the iron links. But Daniel did not stop. The shoes echoed on the stairs, steady and unhurried, as if each step was a drumbeat of fate. At the top, he stepped onto the balcony. The air was thick, with smoke from fallen candles, and the golden light flickered across Sophia's face. She looked like a queen, no longer. She looked like a shadow of fury, a mask ripped away. Daniel stood tall before her. This isn't power, Sophia, he said quietly. This is desperation. Her hand shook on the chain, but her laugh was sharp. Desperation? No, this is victory. When the chandelier falls, you'll be crushed. And they'll remember me, not you. Daniel shook his head slowly. No, Sophia. They'll remember the truth, that you had everything and chose greed over love. For the first time, her eyes flickered with something else. Fear. Stop talking, she shouted, her voice breaking. Stop trying to make me weak. But Daniel's voice grew stronger. I once loved you, Sophia. I gave you my trust, my heart, but all you loved was my money. Tonight, everyone sees who you really are. You don't need me to destroy you. You've destroyed yourself. The words struck her harder than steel. Her grip on the chain loosened slightly. Her chest rose and fell fast. Her eyes wet with something between rage and despair. Maya's voice rose from below, trembling but firm. Let go, Sophia. Not the chain, let go of your hate. Sophia's head snapped toward her, tears brimming in her furious eyes. You ruined everything. If you had stayed silent, none of this would have happened. Daniel took a step closer, his hand outstretched. Sophia, ended here. Don't fall lower than this. Let go of the chain, and we'll walk down. Together, face the truth with dignity. For a heartbeat, silence fell again. Chandelier swayed dangerously, its iron links screaming. Sophia looked at Daniel's hand. Her lips trembled. For the briefest moment, she seemed ready to drop the chain and take his hand. But then her eyes hardened. Her smile twisted back into fury. Double quotes. No, if I can't have you. Shh. Daniel, no one will. She screamed and pulled the chain with all her strength. Balcony shook violently. The chandelier crashed down several more feet, dangling now just above the marble floor. Guests below shrieked, scattering to the walls. A storm of crystal shards rained down, cutting into the carpet and tables like knives. Daniel lunged forward. He grabbed Sophia's wrist, forcing her away from the chain. She struggled, screaming, clawing at him with her bloody hand. Let me go. Let me finish this, she shrieked. Their bodies slammed against the railing. The wood groaned under their weight. Sophia's eyes burned with madness as she tried to twist free. I'll take you with me, Daniel. I'll pull us both down. Daniel's grip tightened. His voice thundered. Not tonight, Sophia. The fight was brutal, desperate. She kicked, scratched, her strength wild. He held firm, forcing her back step by step. The chain above them rattled violently, the chandelier swinging. Lower sparks bursting as the iron links stretched to their limit. Below, Maya screamed in terror. Daniel, the chain, it's going to break. Servants pulled guests toward the exits, but none could take their eyes off the balcony. Where the battle between love and hate, truth and lies raged like fire, Daniel pinned Sophia's wrist against the wall, his chest heaving. It's over, he roared. She spat in his face, her voice cracked with hate. It will never be over.
Not for me.
Then it happened. The final iron link above gave a deafening crack. The chandelier tore free from the ceiling, dropping toward the ballroom with thunderous speed. The crowd screamed. Maya fell to her knees, covering her head, and Daniel had only a split second to decide hold Sophia and fall with her, or let go and save himself. His heart pounded like a war drum. Sophia's eyes widened, realizing her doom. She shrieked, "Daniel!" The world froze in that instant, and Daniel made his choice. The air split with a deafening crack. The chain above snapped, releasing centuries of weight in one violent breath. The chandelier, a mountain of iron and crystal, plunged downward like a beast freed from its cage. The world slowed. Gasps turned to screams. Shadows leapt across the walls. Daniel's arms still held Sophia's wrist. Her wild eyes locked onto his. The madness in them flickered into sudden raw fear. "Daniel," she screamed, her voice no longer proud. No. Longer, cruel only desperate, the chandelier fell closer, crystals shattering midair, raining sparks of glass and fire in that heartbeat. Daniel understood. He could cling to her and die, or he could let go and live. Maya's voice broke the storm. "Daniel, please." Her cry cut through his chest. Saw her below, her hands outstretched, her face pale with terror, and then he made his choice. With one final look at Sophia, Daniel released her wrist. Her eyes widened in disbelief as his hand slipped away. Her scream ripped through the hall as her body lurched forward. Dragged by her own momentum, the railing cracked. She tumbled over the edge. The chandelier and Sophia fell as one. The crash shook the earth. A deafening explosion of glass. Fire and iron consumed the center of the ballroom. Candles burst, wood splintered, marble cracked. Guests shrieked and shielded their faces from the storm of shards. When the smoke cleared, the chandelier lay in, ruin twisted, broken. Crushed into the marble floor, and beneath its wreckage Sophia's body lay still. Her gown, once glowing white, was stained with dust and shadow. The jewels she had worn so proudly scattered like worthless stones across the floor. Her hand, once gripping the chain so tightly, now lay open, empty, reaching for nothing. Silence swallowed the room. No music, no laughter, only the soft crackle of flames and the distant sobs of shaken guests. Daniel stood frozen at the balcony, his chest heaving, his hands trembling. He stared down at the wreckage, his face pale. Maya rushed to him, climbing the stairs 2 at a time. Her eyes brimmed with tears, her voice shaking. "Daniel, you're alive." He turned to her slowly, his jaw clenched. His eyes, dark and heavy, flicked once more to the ruined chandelier. "She's gone," he whispered. But the weight of his words pressed on his chest like stone. Below, whispers rose among the guests. She tried to kill him. She went mad. Was it true? Was she poisoning him? Fear and curiosity wove through their voices, but no one stepped forward, no one dared move near the shattered chandelier. The truth lay bare, but so did the horror. Daniel descended the staircase, Maya at his side. His steps were heavy, each one echoing through the silence. He stopped near the wreckage, staring down at Sophia's still form. For years he had thought her the center of his world, the woman who would walk beside him forever. Now she was gone, her lies buried under the weight of her own greed. Maya touched his arm gently, her voice soft. "Shh, you did what you had to do." She chose her path. Daniel's lips pressed together, let her go, and she chose the fall. His words cut like steel in the air. Suddenly Sophia's hand twitched. Gasps filled the room. Daniel's eyes snapped to her. Against the ruin, her chest rose weakly. Blood stained her lips. Her hair tangled in shards of crystal. But her eyes fluttered open. She coughed, her voice a whisper. "Daniel." Maya clutched his arm tighter, her heart racing. "She's alive." Sophia's trembling fingers reached toward him, her voice broken, fragile. I didn't want to lose." Her words faded. Her hand dropped, her body stilled again. Her final breath slipping into the silent hall. Maya buried her face against Daniel's chest, sobbing softly. Daniel wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. His own eyes burned, not from love lost, but from the weight of what had been revealed. The guests, one by one, began to leave the ballroom, their whispers fading into the night. The truth was no longer hidden. They had seen everything with their own eyes. Servants covered the wreckage, muttering prayers. The party, meant to be a celebration, had become a graveyard of secrets. Daniel led Maya out of the ruined hall. Steps were slow, but his head was high. The night air hit his face, cool and sharp. The stars above glittered freely, without chandeliers, without masks, without lies. Maya's voice trembled beside him. She almost destroyed you. Daniel looked down at her, his eyes softening. No, she destroyed herself. All I did was let go. Maya nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, and together they stepped into the night, leaving the ruins of greed behind. But inside the mansion, beneath the rubble, Sophia's diamonds still glimmered faintly in the fear, silent, broken, forgotten. Her story ended not with a crown, but with a fall. The night outside the mansion was quiet, almost too quiet. The stars glittered coldly above, watching as though they too had witnessed the storm inside. Daniel stepped into the garden with Maya by his side. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of roses and damp earth. After the screams, the glass shattering, the thunderous crash of the chandelier, the silence felt unreal, like the pause after lightning before the next strike. But there was no next strike. The storm was over. Daniel stopped near the fountain, the water rippling gently under the moonlight. He stared at his reflection, his face pale, his eyes heavy with shadows. For years he had believed in an image of love, a dream made of wealth and beauty. Tonight, that image had shattered. Maya stood quietly beside him, her hands clasped nervously. She looked at him, then away, unsure if she should speak. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. His voice was low, almost a whisper. She wore a mask for so long. I believed it. I thought it was love. I thought it was real. Maya's eyes softened. It wasn't your fault, Daniel. People like her. They know how to hide. They know how to make lies look like truth.
Ow.
Daniel turned to her, his jaw tight. And you saw it? From the beginning, you warned me when no one else would. Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes did not waver. I only wanted to protect you, even if you didn't believe me. He studied her face in the moonlight, the gentleness, the honesty in her eyes. There were no jewels on her, no silken gowns, no masks. It's just truth. For the first time that night, his heart felt something lighter than fear. Why? He asked softly. Why would you risk yourself for me? Maya hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly as she answered. Because love, real love, isn't about money or power or beauty. It's about protecting someone, even when it costs you everything. It's about truth, even when no one believes you. Her words struck deep into him. They weren't grand or polished. They were simple. They were real. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the night fall away. When he opened them, there was a new clarity in his gaze. All this time, he said slowly, I thought love was about having the perfect life, the perfect partner, the perfect image. But now I sit was only an illusion. He took a step closer to Maya, his voice steady. Love isn't about what shines in the light. It's about what stays in the dark when no one is watching. It's about truth. And tonight, you were the only truth I had. Maya's eyes brimmed with tears. She looked down, her voice trembling. I never wanted you to see me. I'm just a servant. Poor, ordinary. Daniel gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. His voice was firm, yet tender. No, you are not ordinary. You are the bravest person I know. When everyone else was silent, you spoke. When everyone else watched, you acted. Tonight, you saved my life. Not just my body, but my heart. Her tears slipped down her cheeks, and she whispered, Daniel. He took her hand, holding it firmly as though it was the only steady thing left in the world. From this night on, he said, his voice low but certain, I will not chase illusions again. I will not be blinded by masks. I will live in truth. And if you'll let me, I want you to walk beside me. Maya's breath caught. For a moment she could not speak. Then, through her tears, she nodded slowly. Yes. It was a single word, but it was more powerful than any promise. The garden seemed to breathe with them. The fountain's gentle sound, the whisper of leaves, the stillness of the stars, all of it wrapped around them like a quiet blessing. Daniel pulled Maya into his arms. She trembled against him, but slowly relaxed, her head resting against his chest. For the first time that night, they both felt safe, and though shadows still lingered in the mansion behind them, they knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning inside. Servants still whispered of Sophia, of the fall of the poison. The ballroom lay in ruins, the chandelier broken forever. But none of that mattered now. The lies had been burned away. The guests would talk. The city would gossip. But the truth would remain. Sophia's love had been a mask, and in the end, masks always break. Daniel had lost an illusion, but he had found something far greater. He had found love that was real. As dawn's first light touched the horizon, Daniel and Maya walked hand in hand down the garden path, leaving behind the shattered glass, broken chains, and the ghosts of false love. They did not look back, because the truth about love is simple. It does not poison. It does not betray. It does not hide behind masks. Real love is truth, and truth had finally set them free.